Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Designer Speak. I'm your host Christopher Scott, and today I'm joined by Nicolas Camacho and Santiago Gómez. Today we're going to talk about advice for students. So Santiago, what is your advice or what information would you give to students?
For me, the most important thing, like as a student, is you need to have something in your brain. First, you need to make investigation. If you don't make investigation and you don't read the brief and you don't take care about these two things, that is the most important thing.
So for students,
My advice for them is read the brief, not one time, like
again,
all the time.
even when I'm doing an investigation or reading the brief, say for example I have like a problem with ideas or something, I would go back to the brief again
The brief give you the solution of a trouble,
of the problem.
of the problem. So when you're making posters, whatever you want, you need to read the brief, make a big investigation, a big research, and after that,
See, that's the thing, Santiago. What way would you go about doing an investigation? Like
talking to people.
talking to people.
Talking to people. For me, the best point is not more that real facts. Is if I go in the bus, I make some friends in the bus, and I say, "What do you think about this topic?"
Right.
And they start talking about, for example, peace. They start talking about peace, and what they want, what they think, and so, my brain is taking some words, and in that time I write because I have my sketchbook all the time with me.
Right. Okay.
So I get ideas, and after that I go and talk with my own friends
Right.
and ask to them, what do you think, what do you want to see in posturing, in a campaign, in whatever you want. And for me, the advice for the students is like, take care about the little things,
Right.
the stupid things,
Right.
because you can create crazy ideas and good ideas with words, and you cannot have idea what are you saying. In the first moment, you make 100 sketch, and that we said before, we come back to the first one and we make a mix between all of the process.
Right. And Nicholas, what is your opinion, or what advice would you give to the students?
My first advice I have for students is acquire knowledge, because I think knowledge is the only thing that makes you free. Like, I don't want to sound religious, but I think it's always good to remember some quotations from some books. So for example, the Proverbs, book of Proverbs, it says that, quoting it says, "Wisdom is supreme, therefore gets wisdom. Though it calls all you have, get understanding." And another thing said, "Hold on to instruction, do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life." I think that knowledge is the most important thing that you can acquire.
But Nicholas, how do you get knowledge?
Knowledge is
Where does it come
really
from?
understanding.
Just I want to say
Something really
about
relevant.
knowledge. Knowledge for me, as a poster designer, is experimenting.
He said it again every episode. It's the same.
Experimenting, you like a poster designer again. I will say something like,
We should do a count of how many times Santiago Gómez says, "I'm a poster designer."
But
We should do
it's
that.
truly important to understand where does knowledge come. Epistemologically speaking, knowledge means understanding what is the supreme idea where this thing come from.
Yeah, but Nicholas, my question for you is, how do you get that knowledge? Obviously,
Exactly.
how do you get it? Do you read books? Do you watch films? So how do you get that knowledge?
I always been saying in this podcast is how important it is to deconstruct the ideas, to break it down, to separate things, and to generate your own knowledge from those elements that you get from certain perspective. For example, if you have a project, first understand the audience, understand the objectives, understand the strategy, understand what media you're gonna use, understanding all those things, and then you bring it together, you make it an experience, you associate with your life, with your existence, then it becomes knowledge. What is knowledge? Why is it knowledge? Because it is related with your own existence, and you can generate more knowledge from this point toward the future.
Yeah, but like, knowledge comes from where? Knowledge comes from books. Knowledge comes from films. Knowledge comes from
experience.
From experience.
Constructing everything.
Exactly. So I think that's actually a very good point. Like, knowledge and understanding how the world sees things, how the world works. That's really important. But that's why whenever I do an investigation or I do like something about a project, I always research things that are not necessarily perfect about the topic. I read books that have maybe nothing to do with the problem. But it's just that, it's like what you say, it's like that extra knowledge and that extra bit of information can give you that extra idea. But in terms of me, my advice for students would be basically as designers, you are visual people. So what's the most important thing? Your eyes. So whenever I'm talking to all my students and I'm talking about all my conferences and stuff like that, always I say that you need to understand the visual language of the world. Now, how do you do that? You need to be looking around all the time. You need to be looking at forms, shapes, colours. Because you need to be look and visualize things differently than everyone else in the world, than the non-designers. And that's really important. And that's what being a designer is for me. Being a graphic designer or a designer in general is visually seeing things. We see dead people. But visually seeing things that necessarily other people don't see. So that's my biggest advice for students, and I always say that whenever I have classes and conferences and stuff, is that you need to see, like what you said, you need to see like those small details.
For me, the small details, the simple parts, the people, what they look on a film, the history, but you're not taking care about the colors on the movie.
See, that's the thing. Whenever I look at a film,
if the brightness is so high or no, you have a lot of shadows on the film, and what that communicate for the common people.
Exactly.
So
that's the thing. It's like, and you made a good observation, Santiago, in relation to films. It's those small wee details. It's like, how is the camera positioned? What does the camera angles tell you? And that's the same design. It's like how the composition plays, how the color plays, what typography you're using. And it's those small details that make someone a good designer. And whenever I'm saying advice for students, is you need to understand how the eyes work, how the eyes interact with certain colors and shapes and forms, and that will lead you to understand the keys to design.
I agree with you.
So like Nicolas, and going back to what you're saying, in your classes, you're a teacher in the UT in Ecuador, when you're giving your classes, what do you say to your students to like?
Well, basically, I always try to guide the students to understand that there is good and there is evil, that there is something universal about things, that you cannot say that bad is good or that good is bad. There are certain laws that must be understood. Second thing I tell the students is that it is really important to understand their place in the world. Somehow everyone has a calling, everyone has a responsibility, and they have to understand themselves in order to understand what they have to be doing in life. And third, I tell them that a life in which a person doesn't investigate, doesn't try to understand or get knowledge or improve themselves, a life not worth living. So I try to place these three ideas and to tell them that even though this is what Socrates taught, that's something I want to transmit them, because I think those things are the most important things for life, for anyone.
Interesting. And that's the thing. Whenever I was talking to you, Santiago, a week before, we had this nice conversation in the cafe whenever you had some issues and stuff like that. And what I was trying to do in that conversation was give you that passion back. And I think that as our role as teachers, me and you, Nicolas, we have to give them that passion, that drive, and that determination, and that inspiration to be designers.
There's something that a student, something that a person can do it if nobody else can do it. So people have to realize that they already have a responsibility with the world, with existence, with themselves, with the calling that the Supreme Being is giving us.
But guys, you're talking like a teacher. I can talk like a student, and I can say something like, the teachers all the time are thinking in what are you going to do, in like, this is your future. For me, the teachers needs to help us to make a passion. We need to engage with passion.
And that's very important, Santiago. It's like, I don't believe I can teach someone to be a designer.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. But I believe that I can inspire someone to be a designer. So it's my responsibility. I believe it's my responsibility, and it's your responsibility too. And it's all the other professors' responsibility too, to inspire the students.
More than inspire.
But
what is the trouble and the problem in the universities, colleges, schools? The students look at the teachers like they have the reason, and that is not true. You need to experiment in your own life and creating your own
I always
projects.
tell the students, never believe me, never believe a book. They construct your own reality. Because if you don't construct your own knowledge, you
Yeah,
have
just
nothing.
copy
You
another
have
person.
nothing.
yeah,
I mean, nobody is gonna walk your path. Nobody's gonna do your. There's a phrase I don't remember where I heard, but nobody's gonna do your push-ups for you. What does it mean?
Nice.
That nobody is gonna do your work for you. No teacher ever is going to read a book for you.
No.
But you have to read it. You have to experiment it. You have to make it a part of yourself. For example,
Reading the book, please.
exactly. No, it hasn't been invented yet. A method to transmit ideas to one another through telepathy or through some form of internet. Even if you download something from the internet, you have to make your own work to research and understand.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And this is an interesting topic, advice for students. But for me, it's up to the students. It's up to the students' responsibility. It's like what you said, Nicolas.
Change their mentality.
Change their mentality. It's like a combination of the teachers giving the passion and the inspiration and the guidance.
And the hard work of the student.
Exactly. So it's a combination of the both.
Because
one thing I
if
wanna
you are a teacher, you cannot say, okay, I'm going to teach you something. They need to have the connection, that is my favorite word, the connection between what they want to learn.
True.
If you want to do something, you need to keep pushing yourself. If you fail in the road, you don't need to care. Just you need to go.
Okay, and I think that's a good way to end it. I think that advice for students is a very interesting topic. But you basically, you need to want to be a designer. I'd say that's like the ultimate words. You need to want it. It's like, if you're not desperate to be a designer, then you're not going to become one. It needs to be your obsession, it needs to be your passion, and you need to just love it. You need to
Dream with them.
dream it, and it just needs to become who you are as a person. Thank you very much to Nicolas. Thank you very much to Santiago for joining me today. And thank you to our production team, Dave Rabbit, and we are Designer Speak.
See you guys.